meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here at the Quantum Evolution webinar. And my name is Kara Goodwin, and I'm the host of the Meditation Conversation. I am a spiritual teacher, a meditation coach. I run retreats, and I really enjoy just helping people to connect with their higher self. It's my passion. So, Michael, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Kara. My name is Michael Massey, and I'm an engineer originally by schooling. Went into the nuclear engineering program and worked on wireless communication systems, satellite communication, terrestrial wireless systems in developing countries for the bulk of my former life. And then from about 2009 to 2012, I went through a series of shamanic initiations and radically changed my course in life. So I have done a podcast previously, or I've done many podcasts with Kara here. And if anybody's interested more in my background, then I encourage you to listen to episode 33 of the Meditation Conversation, which you can find on Kara's website at karagoodwin.com.
Yeah, I will. I'll send that link out too once we get going here. Thank you, Michael, for that introduction. And I wanted to thank also the Conscious Awakening Network. We are live streaming. Many of you are on Zoom. We're also live streaming on the Conscious Awakening platform. So it's being streamed on Apple TV and Roku and the Conscious Awakening website. So welcome to everybody who is joining. So happy that you're here. So today we're going to be talking about quantum evolution and all of the pieces that go with that. So we're going to talk about the galactic and planetary things, some of the cosmology things that are happening. We'll talk about the bigger kind of humanity, what's happening across humanity generally, and then how those things might be connected and what that has to do with quantum evolution. And then we'll get into what you can do to kind of weather the storm if you are experiencing a lot of the turbulence from these things. So, Michael, let me hand it over to you to start talking about some of the cosmology pieces.
Okay. And some of this maybe, I've been talking about this for, for years now. And back when I was in Sedona doing, I was doing cheap tours and taking people, vortex tours primarily.
That's how we met.
Yeah, that's how we met. And, Sedona was this place where you have this geomagnetic field anomaly. So this whole vortex phenomenon, which is a big mystery kind of surrounding it. And a lot of people come to Sedona and they hear about these and they want to find out more. So now I've been in Sedona pretty much since 2012. I'm back in Indiana now for the last 2.5 years or so. But I got really into this planetary magnetic field and looking at its cycles, what it does, and so we just kind of catch everybody up to speed a little bit. So the Earth's magnetic field, which of course is what our compasses orient, allows us to find north and south directions. Now this magnetic field actually is kind of shaped like a donut, and comes up out of the North Pole, goes around to the South Pole. The Earth's magnetic field has periodically, and we can look at geological records is how we actually determine this, and we can see the iron in various rock formations, and we can see how over the course of long periods of time, how it periodically, this this field will switch. So the North Pole becomes the South Pole, and the South Pole becomes the North Pole. Now this process takes on average around 200. It's about every 200,000 years or so that this pole flip occurs. That's on average. It's actually been about 780,000 years since we've last had a pole flip, so you could say we're well overdue. And now there's been a series of strange events that have been happening over the last about 15 years or so that seem to be accelerating. And the indicator is that we're entering into this next period or this next pole flip for the Earth. Now, we don't have any books in the library from 780,000 years ago, so it's not like we really know for sure how this is going to affect life, how this is going to affect us, how this is going to affect our consciousness. So this is all, it's things to take note of and to be aware of as this whole process unfolds. Now, this Earth's magnetic field, the way that we're kind of basing our model on what is to come is because we're able to watch the solar magnetic field, and it's because the solar cycle it happens every 11 years. So believe it or not, the sun's magnetic field switches north to south every 11 years. And right before it happens, what happens is the North Pole and the South Pole, all of a sudden there becomes this sprout. So there's North, South Pole, South, South, North. So there's lots of poles all around the sun that creates like a spaghetti bowl of a magnetic field. And then you basically go through this turmoil and all this sort of stuff. And during this period, we see a massive increase in the amount of sunspots, solar flares, CMEs, and all kinds of things like that. Now, these all are emissions that radiate out from the sun, and they do hit Earth. They affect satellites. Familiar with that from back in my days of satellite engineering. Affects satellites. If they're intense enough, they can actually create disruptions to Earth, terrestrial Earthbound systems as well. And so this is increasing more and more. Now, what happens with as the sun, which is an interesting period now, because now we have the Earth that is coming into its pole flip as the sun is flipping its poles. And when a magnetic field gets reversed from the sun and then it hits the Earth, it's reversed, it negates. And it's basically, it's like an additive subtractive. It negates the magnetic field on the Earth, which creates a crack or a hole, and then all this solar energy comes in and it hits us. I think just yesterday we had auroras that were, because right around Valentine's Day, the sun just went, wah, boom, and we got a big burst. And we had auroras that were visible down into the state of New York, which is pretty unusual for it to be that far south. So we have this kind of situation. Now, the sun has also recently did something unusual just a couple weeks ago, and there was some video footage that was posted online. It was super cool, where there was like a polar vortex on the sun of of a matter ejection from the sun that then was swirling around. There it is, and you can see that clip there where that. Yep. Thank you, Kara, for that visual.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
so. Do you want to explain a little bit about what we're looking at here?
Well, Yeah, it's just it's a mystery. And
Yeah,
this is
the
what
headline says part of the sun has broken off and formed a vortex. What the heck is going on?
Yeah.
From sciencealert.com.
and that is part of it. No, of course, in the last whatever, I think it started about 3-4 years ago. We get these winter storms come in, and they were all related to what they call the polar vortex. And so it's probably that everybody's thinking polar vortex, and then eventually the sun says, "Oh, you wanted a polar vortex, and here you go." That's just one theory. So that incident has happened. The sunspot activity, as I mentioned before, is off the charts. We also just recorded recently, about 5 weeks ago, we had the largest.
Wait, here's the sunspot. This was from January 22nd, the really big one, but there have been many.
That's a sunspot that was actually visible with the naked eye, and that has never ever happened before.
Almost 5 times the diameter of Earth.
Yeah. Monster.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's quite all right. So we have this heightened solar activity as we're heading into our pole flip, and then just to top it off, if things weren't even getting weirder, what did we have? Was about 3 weeks ago, or maybe 2.5 weeks ago. Then I don't know if you saw the news reports. Observatory out of China, I believe, detected that the core of the Earth had stopped spinning or stopped its acceleration, and that itself has never been witnessed before either. There we go. As you can see in that picture, you see it's not spinning. That's an actual photo of the Earth.
I know. I'm like, wait, what? That's a picture.
Yeah, just kidding. All right. So we're in this period of time of intense amounts of change, and these increasing number of these anomalies, phenomenon that are happening. And what is this all pointing to? What does this all mean? There's even more to this, in that the levels of gamma radiation that are actually coming from the rest of our Milky Way galaxy, that are hitting our particular solar system and increasing the energy levels here in our solar system, those are on the rise. I think the article that you brought up there, that was a supernova that burst about 6 months ago, and when it arrived, it hit us with such an intense gamma ray burst that it generated electrical current that was measurable across, that traveled through the crust of the Earth. So this is just an inkling of the potential for these high energy cosmic forces, if they arrive and they penetrate through our magnetic field, that they can generate quite an effect for life here on Earth.
And this is just a fun headline from Yahoo about it. A huge gamma ray burst hit Earth, so we may all be like Hulks now.
Right.
That's the good news.
It's one of the standards in terms of, our interest. There's such a collective interest right now in metahumans, and we might talk a little bit more about this. But basically, superheroes, right? And so there's a few different ways that people can transform into superheroes. You can get dropped in a vat of acid, or
get bitten by a spider.
yes, get bitten by a radioactive spider, or you get hit with a gamma ray burst. And yeah, so but that is this potential of an increase in gamma ray radiation, which is generally considered harmful because it does produce mutation. Now, this may end up working to our benefit if we're aligned with it, in that these mutations would be beneficial to us rather than harmful. And the Earth itself, as you know, the galactic, the Milky Way is the Milky Way. The Milky Way
Bruce Wayne.
is a big plane. Okay, the plane of the Milky Way, and what we call that galactic plane. Now the Earth itself, our solar system, as it moves through time, through the eons, it travels. You know, it kind of has an oscillation effect. So it crosses over the galactic plane and then down and then so forth and so on. And so what we're doing is we're coming into that period where we're crossing over the galactic plane. So we have an increase of gamma radiation that's actually hitting our solar system. So galactic level, solar level, and planetary, all three of these levels are all converging. What is this going to produce on Earth? Well, that's kind of what we're here talking about.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for taking us through that. And all of the people who are watching this are muted, but if you do have any questions or anything that you want to ask, which would be a question, or any comments, feel free to use the chat. I think that is enabled. But anyway, so feel free to use that. So we've talked about the galactic planetary kind of cosmology piece. Now let's talk about humanity and some of the sort of changes that we've noticed within the collective recently.
Yeah, well, we have we have that at that physics level, cosmology level. It's like a perfect storm of multiple factors coming in. Then for humanity here, we seem to have a perfect storm happening as well. Unless you've been isolated, you're probably aware that there's been certainly here in the United States, but it's spread all over the world. It seems to be is a growing political divide. And more we have people just divided into two camps and are unable to even communicate at all. And so we're like losing our middle grounds where we would come together for open debate to resolve our differences and work together. And it's just become increasingly challenging. Now we have this at the same time. This is happening, and it's being fueled. It's a bit of chicken egg stuff by the massive increase in the technology. I mean, you look at what we're actually doing here right now. I mean, probably most of the people that are tuning in here. I mean, we remember the days before cell phones, and look at where we are now. It's a phenomenal rate of progress, and we're just right on the brink technologically of achieving artificial intelligence and quantum computing. And these things enter into the mix here, and they have the potential to radically change life as we know it. What do we got a comment here? Hologram
webinars next. I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
Hologram
webinars. Yeah. It's really not. That is not that far off, and it's just really shocking and somewhat. It's kind of cool. Sometimes it's cool. Sometimes it's a little bit scary of the stuff that we grew. I know I grew up on like Star Trek in the 70s and 80s, and then you're like, wow, here we are with technology that is just advanced, or even more so than what was depicted in science fiction 40 years ago. So we have that. We have, and then we have, another situation of, in terms of our economics, and this is the one that's looming. And, that over the course of the last 40, 50 years, birth rates have been dropping. And this is one of the things that's well studied, is that the more developed the world gets, or the more developed a country or region gets, that their birth rates go down. And as such, what we've have is all of our economic systems are predicated on growth. And right now what we have is what's called an upside down pyramid. So we have all the baby boomers are retiring, and they're not being replaced by a labor force that can actually sustain this. And so we get this what's called this inverted pyramid, or or it's top heavy, where the aging populace is more numerous than the working population. And this is a very, very big dilemma. And how are we going to solve this is unknown. Excuse me.
And then we have the, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Again, around the collective consciousness piece, a lot of people, a lot of struggle also has been prevalent in terms of the individual level. I think you were talking recently about a shocking percentage of
right.
Americans agreeing that we have a mental health crisis.
Yes, it was. Yeah, and this study came out. It was about 4 months ago, I believe. And I saw that headline that over 90% of Americans agreed that there was a mental health crisis in this country. And it really struck me, because I was wondering, when was the last time that 90% of Americans agreed on anything? I don't know if we can get 90% of us to agree that we're all human. Maybe, but yeah. So, and I know that I would be surprised if there's anyone here where this has not touched your sphere in some way, shape, or fashion. And even in my sphere, I had an attempted suicide and a suicide just in the past week, actually 10 days. I know that so many people are struggling. And, what is it that's going on?
Right. So we've got the cosmology piece, we've got the humanity piece. So let's talk about how these things may be overlapping, and also getting into, when we talk about quantum evolution, you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but what are we even talking about in terms of quantum evolution?
Okay. Well, one of the things I think is what was the movie The Graduate, and there was the famous kind of quote in there was the advice given to Dustin Hoffman was plastics. That's the wave of the future, plastics. I would say right now the wave of the future is magnetics. We are going to learn more about magnetics in the next decade than we know currently today. And that's just a prediction, because there is so much that we can learn about not how we operate as human beings. We're going to learn so much through this solar pole flip, which is going to complete through 2024. The sun will finish its completion. probably if you go for one more solar cycle after that. So in about the span of 10, 12 years, there's so much advancement to understand about magnetics. I know that we're familiar, and we know that like birds use magnetic fields to navigate, whales and dolphins. And when these fields get disrupted, then this is how we end up with whales or dolphins, swimming into some inlets that they get, and then they get trapped. These kinds of events have been happening now in increasing number for about the last 15 years or so. So it's affecting the sea life. There's some amazing footage. And if anybody wants to tune into, if you have Disney Plus, check out the National Geographic show, Supernatural. And it's James Cameron, and narrated by Benedict Cumberbatch. And it's just an incredible expose into the superpowers that we find out in the natural kingdom amongst the animals. And some of that stuff is very entailed with the magnetic fields. And so animals are using this in terms of it's how they orient and they actually survive in in their environments is through their sensitivity to magnetic fields. And the big, I think, kind of discovery that we're going to understand is just how significant those magnetic fields are to us as humans. And when you start getting things that are, the field starts flipping, it can create a very disorienting type of effect. And we live in this kind of this surreal period where things get like flip-flopped, and we're just wondering how can we having such a difficult time meeting in the middle? And it's like, well, because things are flipped backwards, but it seems to be like all jumbled up and chaotic. And this is one of the grid reports that we did on a podcast about a year ago. And so as I had kind of had my radar out and I was tuning into the energies that was coming into the planet, was like, we're getting a wave of chaos is coming through. And so chaos just kind of breaks things up, and it flips the orientation of things around. It creates mass confusion, and there's a breakdown of systems and all that sort of stuff. So chaos does its thing. Now, ultimately, there's a new order that arises out of the chaos, and it's all part of the cycle. So it's not something actually for us to really be afraid of, but it is something for us to be aware of.
Yes, thank you. So that's one impact in terms of chaos and the magnetics. Let's clarify a little bit with the quantum part of the evolution, because I don't think we really kind of covered that. It was more of like what may come in the next few years, but what do we mean by quantum
evolution? Right. Okay, under a Darwinian model of evolution, you have everything is basically the species are specialized and through a process of natural selection. It's the survival of the fittest, and the strongest elk survives, breeds, makes the herd stronger, and then over the course of many generations, you have very, very small mutations that actually lead up to a divergence in the species. So that's a classical model of evolution, of survival of the fittest. And quantum evolution is not that. It's the conditions become ripe for basically a jump to a whole nother octave. And this is where it's a little bit more difficult to comprehend what this type of what a quantum evolution might entail. Now, I mean, one way to look at it is we could look at at one of the most popular things, across our pop culture right now is the aforementioned meta-human superhero shows, the Marvel Cinematic Universe and DC, and then there's all these other additional shows, and they're popping up from all over the world. These are being made from throughout Europe, Eastern Europe, Asia. It's like everybody loves superheroes right now, and they're almost obsessed with them. And it does beg a question: is something happening at a subconscious level that is letting us know what is coming, and that we are about to take a whole step up as a species? Our DNA is literally going to be upgraded into a new version of human that would be as different from what we are now as we might be from chimpanzees. It could end up being that significant. And now my sense is that this is going to be largely in an upgrade in terms of our cognitive capacities and abilities. There may be corresponding physical upgrades to the human template as well, but certainly what we're going to be able to do with our minds is it's hard to even fathom at the moment.
So, Michael, is there any precedent across history from things that have been found, like archaeologically, that humanity has ever experienced these leaps in the past?
That's one of the theories, if you will, and that explains particularly the monolithic structures that are present generally in the form of pyramids or stepped pyramids that are on every continent across the world. And there's just still a big question of the history course that we were kind of taught growing up, that we just kind of came out of caves and made tools, and now eventually, bit by bit, here we are. That Darwinian type of model doesn't really explain how these things ever got built. And that's fascinating. There's so much more material that is showing up on Netflix and YouTube and all sorts of different places that are seeking to unravel the mysteries of these. And so one of the basically the theories is that we are the kind of the chapter or the human history story that we're living right now is about 6,000 years old. That's what we have in terms of recorded history. And then before that, we don't really have any written records. But perhaps that's because we didn't need them, because this may have been there was a prior, what we would call a golden age, and with an enhanced cognitive capacity, you see, the ability to say telepathically to share thoughts and ideas may not have warranted. There wouldn't have been a need for actually a written language, and so it's only with the whatever was happening at that point that we went through some kind of a fall where we had veils that basically hid a good portion of the universe to us, and as such, our actual ability shrunk. And so, in a sense, we're actually not as advanced as what we once were, and that now we're coming into another cycle where we're going to reclaim all those enhancements once again.
Thank you. Were you about to say something?
Yeah, you can look at what's his name, I think it's Graham Hancock, and look into the Younger Dryas period, which basically states that there's a at the end of the last ice age, there was some kind of massive shift in life here on this planet, And that's a theory that's growing in popularity, and it's really fascinating when you take a look at it. Now, let's see here. Yeah, I mean, one other way to look at this too, and is to kind of bring up kind of a comparison with the animal kingdom as well. So I like to think of it this way. I know we all have spatial awareness, do we not? We're aware that we exist in space. There's space around us, and it's filled with things like pencils and coffee cups and people and all sorts of stuff. So we have our orientation within space. Now, animals have an orientation and awareness of space as well, and oftentimes even way better at it than we might be. So animals have a spatial awareness. We have a spatial awareness. Then beyond that, we have the introduction of time. And so we also have a temporal awareness. And I'd argue that for the most part, this is pretty much what's the temporal awareness and the use of and having opposable thumbs.
I was going to say thumbs.
Yeah, is a combination of basically this dexterity that we have with our hands and our understanding and awareness of time is what has enabled us to become the dominant species on the planet. And now, good luck, even if you could speak perfect dog, if there's any way that you could have a conversation with your dog about what it wants to do tomorrow. And it's not gonna happen. And this is one of the things that we love about our animals, because you're like, wow, I was gone for 2 minutes and
it is a party when you come back. Yes.
Right. Absolutely. So they live very much just in the now, in space, interacting with their environment. Now, some animals are, they show indicators of a temporal awareness, and that tends to catch our attention when we're observing that, because an animal that's acting with temporal awareness be like, wow, it's kind of like, it's how, it almost strikes us as a human type level intelligence.
So you mean like when a dog is wearing a watch and he checks it to see if it's actually 3:15? This is what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Dogs telling time?
No. No.
That would be a great YouTube video.
Yeah, that would be good. That'd be good. So I think what we may have, the capacity for abstract thought is also entwined kind of with this temporal awareness. And so we may be seeing and witnessing, particularly since we have so many cameras out there now, and we're catching such amazing footage of nature that we've never seen before. And so the big question that is of the things that we're witnessing is, has it always been this way, or is the animal kingdom evolving into temporal awareness? That's an interesting question, and one that we will see in time. But the point of this is like, there's such a distinction between what humans are capable of and what the rest of the animal kingdom is capable of. And even though they have amazing super abilities, they cannot do and they cannot build the way that we build as humans. And so what I'm suggesting here is that the next evolution for humanity is going to be as dramatic as that difference. That we're about to, as we're aware of space, we're aware of time, and we're about to have an expansion of awareness into a whole new thing that's going to reveal more of the universe that's always been there. The awareness of time doesn't create time. Time just is what it is, and then we're aware of it. So now we're about to become aware of it, to get a greater picture of the universe than we've ever thought possible. And you know, I was in the lead up to this, and I was sharing with Kara that the mysteries of dark energy and dark matter are gonna start peeling back. And incidentally, when we just about an hour ago, as we're getting ready for this presentation, and I saw the news headline hit that there's new evidence to suggest where dark energy comes from. So
very timely.
Very timely. I know, it's just a coincidence, right?
Yeah.
But so I think that what we're gonna find is that much of the world that we know of from mythology, our creative endeavors, that we're actually tuning into these creative areas, which I like to call like the story waters, that are actually real things, if you will, in the universe that we cannot see. And the universe that we cannot see, we can't see 95% of it. And not that because it's so distant, it's actually, we can't see 95% of what's right in front of us, in the form of that's why we call it dark energy and dark matter. So everything, all the stars, all the planets, everything, all that everything that we can view in the background there is behind me is the deep field, all those galaxies, everything, all of that combined comprises less than 5% of the total energy in the universe, and we can't see the rest of it. But that doesn't, it's there. We know it's there. So what is it? Now, imagine that. So that means that basically we have about dark energy encompasses about 70%. The known matter that we see is about 5%.
And just to clarify, with the dark energy, is that the definition of it? That energy that we can't measure and we can't see, but it's like there's a spot held for it in mathematical equations?
Yeah, it is, because it's the only way that actually explains it. It's the only thing that explains why the universe is expanding. And you know, we take our telescopes and we point them out into the sky, and then we can look at what's called redshift. And so you know, we can tell if something's moving away from us or towards us or whatnot, and we built a model of the universe based on this fact. This factor is the Doppler effect. It's the same principle behind when if you stand on the side of the road and you hear a car go by you, and it goes as it goes by. And so the wavelengths, the frequency of the sound actually increases, gets high pitched, and then it trails off and gets low. Well, that same phenomenon is how we've been mapping out the universe through telescopes, radio telescopes. Now, where was I there? Okay, the dark energy. Yeah, dark energy is basically this force that's causing the universe to expand. So we know the universe is expanding, and the only thing that explains it is there is a bunch of energy out there that's doing it, but we can't see it. And we don't have any way to detect it other than we see the result of it. Now, dark matter is the opposite. This is in that it is part of what's holding together solar systems and galaxies. And if we look at the matter that we can detect, all the galaxies should fly apart. The solar system should fly apart. Like, we shouldn't be in orbit around the sun. We should fly off. But it's like, wait. So what's going on here? So there's this matter that still exists that we can't we can't detect it, but we know it's there.
So where does gravity play into that? Because I know there's like the gravitational pull is part of that.
Yeah,
Is that part
Um,
of dark matter?
yeah. Well, it has. That's the thing. Dark matter has a gravitational impact. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. That's why it's dark matter. It's actually, wow. We can't see anything, but it's like there's some invisible matter there.
mm, fascinating.
I know, it's really fascinating. And then then we think about, the optical range of our eyes. Of course, we have technology that can scan the spectrum, and yet this is to look outside the visual, and yet still we can't detect it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we have a question from Stone. She says, mapping frequencies. So where is the generator that's creating this density?
Where's the generator? Well, that's the $64,000 question, right? I mean, you could just say it's everywhere and it's God. If that's what you're referring to, is where is all of this coming from? Now it's a big question, and part of the evidence that was found today was saying, well, the dark energy is maybe coming from black holes. Could be. Could be. Here's another idea, is what if it's the collective energy of thought from all races and species all over the place? What if we're actually part of the equation in ways that we can't even imagine? What if actually, that thought, at least a portion of the dark energy of the universe is actually thought?
Wow. That puts a whole other perspective on creation,
It
or
does.
in us as creators.
Absolutely. We may be doing this. So completely unknown, but when we would be having, let's say, Kara, you and I are having a talk or something, like we're like, okay, we're trying to schedule something in, and we have an expression, we're like, oh, I'm going to make some space for that, or and what we're doing in our mind is we're looking at we've got our little to-do list and stuff like that, and we're just going to go like, whoa, let's just make some space for something. What if we're actually really are making space?
Wow.
And then you got billions of people that are just making space. And as such, the overall space expands. I mean, right now, based if things continue the way they do, you see all those stars and galaxies and stuff you'd see behind me. You see space is just going to keep expanding until those are so far away that when we look up in the night sky, we won't see a single star. That's the way it's tracking or trending. Now, I don't think it's going to continue along that path, because I don't think it's that, that's not necessarily the equation of the universe. But it's a very real thing. Yeah. Now, if you add in, you would think, well, what could, a few billion humans on this planet do? Well, yeah, except for if you can actually take the leap and start realizing that, hey, wait a second, this planet is sentient as well as are all planetary bodies. Now, we may not have a language to be able to communicate with them directly, but it doesn't mean that they don't have intelligence, or they don't even have thoughts for their own. So the whole universe itself, all of that matter that could be producing a very large portion of this expansive energy. Wow. Now, that might be concentrated, in a black hole, but actually coming from all over the place. Wow. Okay, we do have a few comments if you want to look through here. Okay. Let's see. We did the generate. Dimensionally unlimited, just thinking is creating a reality. The more united on thought, the more we see appear. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And then Carrie says, quantum generator designed by David Clements at the StargateExperienceAcademy.com has recently been introduced to.
and we are using to anchor enhanced energy in Maui. We'll be doing February 19th to March 5th. That's awesome. Wonderful.
I'm going to look that up real quick. What was that? Stargate? What was that?
StargateExperienceAcademy.com. Yeah, that's awesome. So we have just a few more minutes because I know that Sheila will be using this network soon enough. So one thing I wanted to come back to, Michael, is you started talking a little bit about the chaos and the how, the magnetics. We started talking about how the magnetics and kind of the chaos that causes as the poles are shifting, the sun's poles, that's kind of a measurable thing as that energy hits the earth. And we talked about this mental health crisis, and I wonder if you have any thoughts about the struggle that so much of the collective, the individuals within the collective, seem to be experiencing so much struggle mentally. And if you have any thoughts about how these energetic changes are affecting us as energetic beings. We have these human bodies, but we are energy, that's beneath it, behind it, within it, that's running the human mechanism. So what can you share with us about that?
Well, as it's been revealed to me through my grid working, is that humanity is basically we're going from 2-year-old to a 3-year-old, and so the phase that we're going through right now is the terrible twos.
So what do you mean by that? What do you mean by we're going from a 2-year-old to a 3-year-old compared to other species in the cosmos? Or
yeah, and I'm not equipped to actually pick out whatever races and how old they are. But if we look at the idea is that we're the potential that we have within our own DNA stack, right? And we only have 3% of it that we're like, okay, 3% of it, we know what it does because it makes proteins, and 97%, we call it junk DNA, but it's about as mysterious as the dark energy equation. So like the room that we have to grow is astounding in terms of what we are to become. So we're very just early on in the process of who we are.
In reaching our potential from a consciousness perspective.
Yeah. And if you look at a 2-year-olds just don't, they began and they basically go, oh, this is me. And they haven't figured out yet that there's others and there's a greater reality outside of themselves. That's what's characteristic of the terrible twos. So all they know is they get what they want, and or they don't get what they want, and then they throw a tantrum, right? And in a sense, what we're looking at collectively is, we look across the board, you see it all the time. Sorry to say it this, but it's like rampant narcissism everywhere. It's like a bunch of 2-year-olds, and that's. I hate to be so critical, but it just is just what it is. But the good news is that 2-year-olds eventually turn 3, and if we could even look at it in terms of those two things, well, we have spatial awareness, we have temporal awareness, and we're about to get a third. So when from like a collective soul, an increase from 2 to 3 is huge, and so this shift of what we're going through, this is hopefully we're near the end, and it seems to be the case, is that there'll be, and it's already happening in sprinkles, like popcorn. It's sort of like popcorn, the first a few kernels start to go, and then that leads to all of a sudden a boom, 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 boom. And the instant this would happen is what would happen is we go from a binary model, and even you see it's reflected in our computer systems. We all use a binary computing, ones and zeros, in order to program machines to talk. And we are so oriented as a people. We just break things into us versus them, black and white, good and evil. All of these stories that are so fundamental are about to evolve to understanding and thinking in threes natively, such that our minds or consciousness will just gravitate to seeing things in threes. That would essentially be what it means for the consciousness to evolve from a 2-year-old to a 3-year-old.
And so that then comes into as well, just like the dualistic thinking, like how everything is sort of black and white, good and bad. And I mean, I see this a lot just in that people more and more are talking about things, with more neutrality, more of like a yes, and, that things are, people are, I'm seeing a lot more of a letting go of that. Like it either has to be this or it has to be this, and more of an acceptance of an and.
Yeah. It's absolutely moving to the and equation. And something interesting happens with threes, because now there's been lots of talk about, a return to unity consciousness or whatnot. But we don't go from being 2 back to 1. It doesn't work that way. But what we can do is we go from 2 to 3. But with 3, you have actually a more stable form, because now you can form a trinity that then it's the same principle in mathematics as we use it with cell stations in order to triangulate. The GPS uses triangulation to determine a single spot. So that once our mind can work in threes, then we can actually we can very easily create a stable field around the unity point. So the way that we remember unity is by actually growing older, going from a 2-year-old to a 3. Okay. And then that illuminates the 1. Okay, great. And then from there it's, we're on to a whole next, a chapter or adventure of life here, but it'll be radically different. Beautiful. Okay, so thank you for clarifying that. Let's spend a few minutes here. We're getting close to needing to wrap up, about kind of weathering the storm, and with these changes coming and challenges that can come from all of these changes. What are some things that we can do to help us move through this time? For anybody who's hopefully most people here already have a meditative practice, is double down on your meditation. Absolutely. And I'd love I'd love to hear from everybody in terms of whether or not your meditations as of late are off the charts. So there's that. And Kara is actually brilliantly came up with this. But there's basically 3 things that we want to do through all that. Is you want to focus on your alignment. You want to clear your fields of any past traumas, and this is not a time to hold on to anything. So absolutely is it clearing the traumas. And then the last thing is just to continue to raise your vibration. Right. So those keys will help to have grace as we move through these difficult times. Again, going back to the fact that we are energy, this is kind of the foundation of how all of this works together, and why we are, why this is important for us. It's not just that like we're on this rock
of Earth and it can just do what it needs to do. And then we'll just go along for the ride. It's like, no, we are a part of this. We are a part of this energy. We're a part of this planet. We are organic beings of this planet, even if we, identify from other places. We do have these human bodies that are impacted by this energy. So alignment, clearing out those past traumas, and working on raising your vibration are all going to be key. And, these are things that people who are on the spiritual path have been doing for a long time. We've been told to keep up with things like this, but it's no longer like a nice to have, like, okay, I'm going to pursue this because I'm interested in it. It's like, really the importance of it.
I know. And I'm so thankful for every hour, minute, second that I have dedicated to doing the inner work, as I'm watching so many people on the struggle bus right now. And boy, I've got, keep your hearts open, folks, be compassionate, but stay centered and don't wander out into the storm. This is a time to be in the eye of the storm and to stay there, and then be a beacon for others to actually come and find safety with you as well.
Right. So, and just to mention that Michael and I are hosting a retreat May 4th through the 7th here in Indiana. This will be the third retreat that we've had at these sacred grounds at the Oakwood Retreat Center. But and we're going to have the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. So if anybody is familiar with this skull, we're very, very blessed to have that skull there. This is an artifact it's an interdimensional artifact. I know that the first time that I had a personal encounter with the skull, I can't remember if it was like between 10 and 14 days afterwards, was my first really pronounced multidimensional experience where like reality just blew up right in front of my eyes, my inner eye. But it was like, whoa, what is happening here? So I've had personal amazing consciousness expansion through the interaction with that. And then the name of the skull is the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. And I don't know if anybody follows like Ruben Langdon. He's creating a documentary. Actually, I see Lucia there. I know that she's familiar with Ruben, but he's creating a documentary on it. And that was how Michael and I first got to encounter it. But so the retreats are wonderful ways to be able to go into this type of thing, the clearing, the alignment, the elevation of your frequency. It's really kind of, I see Kathy, I see your question here. What is the best way to clear past traumas? And it's, there are a lot of ways that we can do that. One of them being through meditation, intentional practices such as that. But this is really where the retreats are really helpful, to be able to dive deeply into these things and work directly for an extended period of time to kind of pull ourselves out of life and really get ourselves focused and in that vibe is just off the charts. Fantastic. So I highly recommend, if anybody wants to have a chat about that, feel free to ping me. I'll be happy to talk about that in person, or on the phone. But Michael, do you have anything else that you want to close out with today so we can hand this over, or hand Sheila the network back?
Well, the most exciting thing that I feel is the the we don't know what we don't know, right? Is the of what is to come is going to be revelation after revelation. And imagine for a second of how many things right now we operate in terms of a belief system, whether it's believing in God or believing in this or believing in the goodness of humanity or believing that we're all one. And maybe we've had an experience that supports that, maybe not, maybe we're still just operating on belief and living off of faith. But imagine just the gift of being able to know. And this is call it the divine inheritance that we are all going to claim, is that we will get to know.
That's beautiful.
And that is what's to come.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. It was such a blessing to spend this time with you. I will send a follow-up email just so that you know how to access this later, if you were to want to watch it again. And again, thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your evening.
Yes, thank you all for.
Thanks, Michael. Bye, everybody.